So these readings are really powerful. And John, you did a great job. Where are you? You did a great job with the readings. Not that John, John the reader. But you're doing a good job too. It was beautifully read, but powerful readings that make you kind of shudder and really have to stop and think. And for us as followers of Christ, for the people of God, this virtue of forgiveness, this whole idea of forgiveness is really a challenge. Now, I'm sure all of you, if not many of you, know that the number 7 in ancient times was a number that was used for perfection and completeness. And therefore, we have the 7 days of creation. It was perfection, and God created the world, completed the creation story in 7 days, as we're told. But in this gospel now, we hear, Peter asked Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive someone who's offended me? 7? And so he's using that number as an idea for totalness. Is this complete? And Jesus says, no, not 7, but 70 times 7, reminding him, or telling him and reminding us today, that this whole idea, living this virtue of forgiveness, is boundless. It's unending. And that's the hard part. We're never finished with that virtue in our lives, living it out, of forgiving those who have offended us. And you know that, and I know that. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's more challenging, and sometimes we're just tired and don't want to do it. But Jesus tells us very clearly why it is so important for us to hold on to that virtue and to practice it. And we're never done, we're never complete. So I was thinking, what is there new, really, to say about this whole idea of forgiveness, to talk about the gospel today? And this morning, as I was kind of thinking about it, I picked up a magazine that's been on my floor for a while, and I'm sure you probably do the same thing. I have all kinds of magazines that I intend to read, and then never quite get to them. And this one is Ligurian, which I don't read very often, and it's from May and June. And this morning I just happened to pick it up, and when I opened it up to this story on forgiveness. It's actually not a story, it's a poem. It's written by Bonnie Lamel. And I want to share it with you. I think I'm going to have to put this down so I can hold both. I want to share it with you because it reminded me of something that I haven't thought about in a long time. And one of the most important places to learn forgiveness and practice it, one of the most challenging places, is with ourselves, to forgive ourselves. And so in this beautiful poem that she wrote, she says, knowing we all miss the mark, I set my sights on the interior landscape where stubbornness and disappointment rule. I expected so much more from myself than I was able to give. I wanted to be the competent, joyful, caregiving daughter, the infinitely patient spouse, the all-wise and compassionate companion, the understanding comforter. Instead, I had to relinquish the care of my parents to the experts, admit that my limitations exceeded my expectations, prove that patience is not my strongest virtue, succumb to fatigue and stress, stand helpless as death came for each one. At peace with each loved one as they passed over, having forgiven and received forgiveness in bedside conversations, forgiveness invited me to enter for myself as I struggle with guilt and what-ifs. Forgiveness demands that I believe and admit God's love is so much bigger than my failures. God's mercy is broader than my self-pity. God's compassion exceeds my imperfections. God's forgiveness is the moment of grace that welcomes humility, restores right relationships, brings peace. Fractured and false images of self fade into nothingness. Forged in the fiery furnace, the snowflakes of regret and stubbornness, illusions of power melt into rivulets of living water. Infinite mercy, compassion, wonder, and awe become the raging river of new life, possible in Christ. Wash over me, let me be forgiven, help me forgive, even myself. It's amazing how God works in such simple and strange ways. I picked this up this morning and saw something that I needed to hear for myself. And I thought this is an interesting and beautiful little twist on the forgiveness story that we heard today. Yes, we practice the virtue of forgiveness with one another. It's never finished, never complete. But let's not forget to practice that same virtue on ourselves.